We'll begin this session of the Upshur County Commission. We'll with a solemn meditation and prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. You can have the podium.
Thank you.
You can't take it home with you.
Oh, come on. Good morning.
Good morning.
The County Commission of Upshur County, West Virginia held their regular meeting at the Courthouse Annex on Thursday, May 14th at 9 a.m. J.C. Rafferty called the meeting to order. There were present J.C. Rafferty, Commissioner, Terry Cutright, Commissioner, Troy Brady, Commissioner, Terry Wallace, County Administrator, Captain Perry, Assistant Administrator, and Jacqueline Dinklocker, Secretary. The meeting began with a moment of silent meditation and prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All motions passed unanimously unless otherwise stated. After reading of the minutes on motion by Terry Cutright, second by Troy Brady, the Commission approved the April 30, 2015 joint meeting minutes of the Upshur County Commission and the Buchanan City Council, and the regular meeting minutes of May 7, 2015 of the Upshur County Commission as submitted. Robert Orndorff, Jr., Dominion Resources Services Incorporated, Senior Policy Advisor for State and Local Affairs, appeared before the Commission and provided an update/status report on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Mr. Orndorff, Brittany Moody, Pipeline Engineering Manager, and Greg Park, Construction Manager for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, answered a list of prepared questions from the Commission and inquiries from county residents concerning safety issues, disaster preparedness, prevention of water contamination, truck traffic, impact on county roadways, construction noise studies, and security concerns. Mr. Orndorff advised that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline information can be obtained through the website www.dom.com. Mr. Orndorff also advised that he will provide future updates as the project progresses. After discussion on motion by Terry Cutright, second by Troy Brady, the Commission approved and authorized the Commission to sign a resolution urging Governor Earl Tomlin to direct the Department of Highways to implement a public-private partnership to finish Corridor H. After discussion on motion by Troy Brady, second by Terry Cutright, the Commission approved the employment of Evan Thomas as Director of the Upshur County Community Corrections Day Report Center, effective May 17, 2015, at the annual salary of $28,080 as recommended by Rodney Rollinson, Home Confinement Supervisor. After discussion on motion by Troy Brady, second by Terry Cutright, the Commission approved the change of employment status of Sandra K. Bowman from part-time to full-time telecommunicator, effective May 11, 2015, as requested by Stephen Linger, E911 Communications Center Director. After discussion on motion by Terry Cutright, seconded by Troy Brady, the Commission approved the employment of Doyle Cutright, II, as full-time E911 Communications Center telecommunicator, as requested by Stephen Linger. The effective date of employment is May 24, 2015 at the rate of $11 per hour. Terry Wallace requested postponement of agenda item number 5, consideration to fill an ETAB vacancy. Ms. Wallace advised that there may be additional parties interested in the position and requested the Commission's request the board's recommendation. The item will be placed on a future agenda. After discussion on motion by Terry Cutright, seconded by Troy Brady, the Commission approved and authorized the President to sign the Xerox upgrade license agreement for software and support services related to the AS400 system. The commission recessed at 10:45 a.m. Commission reconvened at 10:55 a.m. J.C. Rafferty reviewed the following for your information items. Number 1, correspondence from Terry Jo Bennett to Vera Hinkle regarding a road name request application. 2, building permits, April 2015. 3, dog report, April 2015. 4, cat report, April 2015. 5, Upshur County Extension Office newsletter, May 2015. 6, West Virginia University Extension Service newsletter, May 2015. 7, Upshur County E911 Communications Center reports, April 2015, as listed. 8, agendas and/or notice of meetings, there were none. 9, meeting minutes as listed. 10, meetings as listed. 11, appointments needed or upcoming as listed. The commission approved all invoices for payment. The commission approved all vacation orders. Joyce Harris Thacker, Upshur County Family Resource Network Director, appeared before the commission with law enforcement representatives and read 2 poems, Surrounded by Heroes and Service of Honor, and tribute to police officers, and provided a review of Peace Officers Memorial Day proclamation, which calls upon Upshur County citizens to observe May 15, 2015 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and May 11 through 17, 2015 as Police Week in memory and honor of deceased or disabled law enforcement officers. After discussion on motion by Troy Brady, seconded by Terry Cartwright, the Commission approved and authorized the Commission to sign the proclamation. Ms. Harris Thacker provided blue ribbons in commemoration of fallen officers. After discussion on motion by Terry Cartwright, seconded by Troy Brady, the Commission approved and authorized the President to sign the planned maintenance agreement with Verdon Bells and Clocks in the amount of $795 for fiscal year 2015-16. The agreement is for the maintenance of the cast bell, bell ringing equipment, and tower clock located at the Upshur County Courthouse. The Commission approved the following settlements as listed. The Commission approved the following exonerations and/or refunds as listed. With no further business, on motion by Troy Grady, seconded by Terry Cartwright, the Commission adjourned at 12:05 p.m.
Thank you, Jackie. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as noted? Other than that, of inserting the word "to" between the word "commission" and "request" on that paragraph relative to item 5 on last week's agenda with regard to E10 appointment.
I move that we approve the minutes with the change.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Jackie. Today's agenda, we have a meeting at 9:30 with Mr. Emil Butcher of Micrologic to review a new panic system quote. That's at 9:30. And then at 10 o'clock, we have a review announcement of the James W. Curry Scholarship recipients, which may require executive session by the Commission in order to discuss those scholarship awards. We have a supervisors meeting at 1 o'clock, and we have a policy board meeting at 2 o'clock. So we'll continue then until 9:30 with items for discussion, action, or approval. We have correspondence from David Long requesting appointment to the Upshur County Fire Board as a 2nd District representative effective July 1, 2015. However, Mr. Long, in submitting his letter requesting appointment to the board, it was determined by the Fire Board that the bylaws of the Fire Board that we operate under require that anyone who has an affiliation with the Commission or with the Fire Department cannot serve as a civilian as an appointment or citizen appointment. Mr. Long, of course, left the Fire Department a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or so as a volunteer with the Upshur County Volunteer Fire Department. However, he was named an honorary fireman. He holds that title. He was contacted in order for him to be appointed to this position. He would have to relinquish that title of honorary fireman, and he was reluctant to do that. So therefore, that negates our ability to appoint Mr. Long to the Fire Board. However, the Commission and staff do appreciate his willingness to serve, and it's the mark of a good citizen, and we appreciate his his willingness to serve prior to that information being determined, discovered that he was affiliated nonetheless with the fire department. We have correspondence from Tabitha Perry, Assistant Administrator, requesting employment of the Cannon Upshur Recreational Facility staff effective immediately. And that has a number of individuals that will be summer employees working at the pool in various capacities. We have correspondence. Does that require approval? I think it would. Do I have a motion to approve the hiring of the individuals listed in Ms. Perry's memorandum? Starting with Renee Carr, Melanie Sandy, Caitlin Bosley, Lindsay Bosley, Brooke Newcomb, Gregory Knock, Samantha Barlow, Haley Williams, Caitlin Mahoney, and Haley Miller. Do I have a motion to approve the hiring of that summer? Summer employees.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next, we have a motion from Tabitha Perry, Assistant Administrator, requesting employment of Haley Williams, Brad Hunt, and Corey Johnston as seasonal coaches for the Splashers swim team, effective immediately. The county will be reimbursed in full by the Splashers swim team for those employees' compensation. I have a motion to approve that recommendation of Assistant Administrator Perry.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next, we have approval and signature of the Joint Opportunities for Independence joint contract between the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources and Upshur County Commission addendum renewal effective July 1st, 2015. Carrie, would you please give an overview of this particular request?
Sure. This is an organization that has worked in the county clerk's office before. They provide free labor through this contract and basically work internships here over the courthouse.
Very
So I would
good.
recommend that you look at that.
Very good. Is there a recommendation or a motion to approve the authorization for signature to enter into that contract?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next, we have approval and signature of Governor's Community Participation Grant Program time extension request for grant 14LEDA0249 and 14LEDA0247 for the Upshur County Youth Camp Bridge repairs. Do I have a approval or a motion to approve that request for authorization for signature on the Governor's Community Participation Grant?
We are on their schedule to repair this grant. The state will be doing that. However, the repairs will not be completed by June 30, and that's when the grant is due, so that's why we're requesting
I'll
extension.
move with you for that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I appreciate that we were able to get that grant because it addresses the bridge over to youth camp, which you have to have access across to get to the camp. Okay, next we have correspondence from David H. Kaufman, Upshur County Sheriff, requesting termination of Daniel Boone, Upshur County Animal Control Officer, effective May 22nd, 2015, and requesting approval of the immediate advertisement for this position. Do we need to go into executive session, or can we make a decision based on?
If you prefer to enter executive session, you can, or you can just vote.
I'll move. Go along with Dave Kaufman's recommendation.
So not going to executive session is simply act on his request. Okay. Is there a motion to act on Sheriff Kaufman's request for termination?
I'll move to react.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of animal control officer job posting applications are due by the close of business on Friday, May 29, 2015. Do I have a motion to approve the placement of that advertisement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. It's my understanding that in the interim, the sheriff's office will, I think, have staff to handle the animal issues.
That's correct. Bobby Hawkins will be
Correct.
handling the majority of the complaints.
Okay, we have a few more minutes before our first appointment, so we'll move then to our information items. We have correspondence from Stephen D. Canterbury, Administrative Director of the Supreme Court of Appeals, agreeing to Judge Rieger's request to utilize money from the worthless check fund to purchase carpeting for the magistrate's courtroom and magistrate court offices in Upshur County. I don't think that requires any
No, it doesn't.
Upshur County Tobacco Prevention Coalition has provided the commission with a handout, which will be available. We have a letter from Maureen Lewis, Administrative Law of the Secretary of State, State of West Virginia, requesting the filing of a list of all public service districts and their current board members by July 1, 2015, which we'll comply with. We'll have Atlantic Coast Pipeline Project update for May 2015. We have correspondence from Steve Atkinson, Land Project Manager with Columbia Gas Transmission, regarding Columbia Gas requesting authorization for the upgrade of the FERC, from the FERC, that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Upon approval, Columbia Gas will increase the maximum allowed operating pressure to 1,000 pounds square inch gross, whatever PSIG, whatever the G stands for. Is anyone familiar with gas terminology? PSI per square inch.
And that means gas.
Gas per square inch of gas. People do well electing into the commission. Then we also have a monthly dog report from April 1, 2015 to April 30, 2015. We have Lewis Animal Control Adoption Financial Transactions from April 1st, 2015 to April 30, 2015. We have the Upshur County Sheriff's Financial Statement for April. We have agencies and our notices of meetings. We have meeting minutes. We have the list of meetings which various boards and organizations hold during the month of May. We have appointments that are needed or coming. And one of those to be filled will be the fire board, as the vacancy still exists. Our next regular meeting of the Upshur County Commission will be held on May 28, which is a week from today. However, please note that the June 4, 2015 regular meeting, 2 weeks from today, has been canceled. We still have a few minutes yet for our first appointment, so I suggest if we have any bills to pay, we can ready ourselves to do that. We have about 10 minutes. We'll make an announcement. We received this morning the American Legion Post number 7 of the Cannon invites the public to join the combined honor guard for Memorial Day services as follows. On Saturday, May 23rd, Mount Olive Church at Hemlock, 11:30. Monday, May 25th, Memorial Day at noon at the Mount Union Cemetery. And Monday, May 25th at 3:00 p.m. at the Hebner Cemetery. That's the city cemetery on Hall Road. They will be having American Legion will be having ceremonies in honor of veterans on Memorial Day. And we have Mr. Emil Upshur from Micrologic to review the new panic system quote that was submitted by Micrologic on April 23rd. Mr. Upshur.
Good morning. Thanks to the council for the opportunity to quote on this. As you, I'm sure, are aware, the arrest alarm in the courthouse is about 20-year-old technology, and it's become pretty dysfunctional, and the equipment is actually no longer manufactured. So we've done a lot of work. We've tried to get it working the best we can, but it's really a dead horse. So we put together a new quote that would be current technology that for all intents and purposes won't function much different than what you have now, other than it'll actually work. A couple things that it does that's a little different. We would actually put 2 receivers that the buttons are wireless. There'd be a receiver in each building, which will allow us to get better coverage. And then also the panel is smart enough to know when a button isn't working. So they're basically cold. So every few hours they have to report in. Hopefully a panic button is something that you don't use very often, so you don't know if it's really working without testing it. So the way this works is the panel actually pulls those buttons to make sure that the battery's okay and all that. If the battery is going low, you'll actually get a report of that, and it'll tell you which button needs a battery replaced, or if a button malfunctions and fails to report in, it'll tell you that as well. So it takes a lot of work and a lot of questions out of, the things actually working.
Takes some human error out.
To some extent, yes. So, unfortunately, we all get complacent and they don't get tested very good. So it's just another check and balance to make sure that the system's working. Somebody had mentioned the possibility of to be able to carry around the button. We can do that. The problem I can see if somebody were to press that address button, you won't have any way to know where that person is other than they're somewhere in the two buildings. So, yes.
Can transmitters be put throughout the building and each hallway? So if a button's pushed, I'm assuming they're going to be numbered. So if button number 1 is pushed, it shows that you're in the magistrate clerk's hallway?
No.
Or is it, no? Okay.
The panel doesn't, even though there are multiple receivers, it just knows that you're out there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, another question. Can each panic button have its own alarm that it sends to the comm center? Because currently there'll be multiple panic buttons on one transmitter. So if the button's pushed, it'll say
Yes.
commission office, but that could be either me or the commissioners.
Yeah, I think we actually quoted, I believe it's 40 wireless panic buttons. So each one of those 40 would have a unique ID.
Okay.
Now, it is possible to have multiple buttons wired to the same transmitter. Typically, they would be in close proximity. So, for example, up here, you might have one transmitter, but you might have a button at each desk.
Mm-hmm.
So, each person could push it. So when that transmitter goes off, it will report what transmitter that came from.
Okay.
So you wouldn't typically have multiple buttons wired to it that weren't in very close proximity to each other.
Will the cost of the quote decrease if we do not utilize buttons that can be taken with you? If we only have buttons here hardwired to the desks and you cannot transport them?
What we actually quoted were 40 basically stationary buttons.
Okay, so this is for stationary.
Yeah, those would be stationary buttons. Now the ones that you can carry, like I say, it's not that you can't do that. You just would have to use that with caution. If the person would have it in their pocket, for example, and they accidentally press it in the hallway, it'll send a signal, it'll get a signal, and it could even say, John Doe's portable button or whatever.
Okay, well that's a question. Instead of having them numbered, can we have them named?
Sure.
Okay, I think that may help because of course if they're numbered, then there'll be a log that associates the name with the numbers. That would alleviate that amount of time of
Right,
searching
at
the
the
log.
comm center, that when they, I assume you're going to have it call into the comm center the way it does now. When that comes up on the receiver, the software can actually be, each one will have it's actually what's called a unique zone. And then that zone could be named as, a location or a person or something that would identify that,
Okay.
they would readily know where that was.
Right now, when the address alarm button is pushed, it takes around 20 seconds to ring to the comm center.
Right.
Will that amount of time decrease with the new system?
No, the way that the system works, it's actually done over the phone line. So if you, because the sheriff's department, a couple of things. I would suggest that we quoted in here a keypad. I would suggest we put that keypad probably in the sheriff's office, so that if somebody were to push the button, they'll get an audible sound immediately, within just 2 or 3 seconds at the sheriff's office at that keypad, right?
Okay.
So they could go to that keypad, and on that keypad it would display, courtroom or whatever the location was. That's assuming that the sheriff's there. But at the same time, it basically seizes a phone line, places a computer call to the comm center, that receiver answers, they transfer the data back and forth, and then it pops up on the screen up there. So even though 20 seconds might be a long time, if you're really under duress, it's actually pretty quick. But not as quick, obviously, as the keypad that would be in the sheriff's office. So that, or anywhere, but that would be assuming that there's somebody there.
I just don't understand the fact that there is an emergency someplace within the court complex.
Well, would the keypad still show the person's address alarm that was activated?
It'll be an LCD keypad, so it'll have room to put, we can actually write a description. So, I mean, you're limited to about 20 characters, I think, something like
Like
that. But
commission or assessor?
yeah, I mean, it's going to be something that if the sheriff or somebody looked at it, it'd be a name that would mean something to that person. They would know,
Okay.
you know, where that button was.
Does this bid have the keypad figured in?
Yes, it does.
What if the phone lines are out?
If the phone lines are out, it doesn't call out. I mean, it can't call out.
Will it still ring to the keypad?
Absolutely.
Okay, in the past, we've had, does this have a battery backup if the electric would go
Yes.
out?
Absolutely.
So we wouldn't have the problem we had before?
I'm not sure what problem you're referring to, but
When we had this grant and we revamped the whole system, a backup battery wasn't included in the quote. So we didn't find out that we needed a backup battery until the power went out and a address alarm was pushed and there was no one that responded.
okay, I guess I don't, we didn't put the original system in, so I'm not
No, this
sure.
was 2 years ago when we revamped the entire system and got the computer back up and running at the comm center and got all the transmitters put back in place.
Oh, okay, well, I think the battery back you're talking to was the one at the comm center.
Correct.
Right. Well, it's on a UPS now, so that just, it's actually the way that works is it hits a receiver up there that I think was on a UPS, but the computer that displayed the information was not plugged into a UPS. So that's been corrected. So that as far as how that rigs in, you know, you guys they currently monitor, I think, the fire alarm system here, and
They no longer actually monitor the fire, well, no, they do. Just recently we switched over, they do monitor the fire alarm system as
right, and
well.
there's, forgive me, I don't know which ones they monitor about. I know there are 3 or 4 different accounts.
Here in the library,
The
here in
library.
the courthouse and the library.
Right, so those would all function the same as far as the calling in. They would have to have, the receiver up there, I think, has multiple phone lines. The panel here would not. It would just be tied to one phone line.
Okay.
Now, there's been a little bit of issue, partially due to the age of some of this equipment, but with the phone lines that you're currently using, they're a VoIP type system, and they don't necessarily play well, especially with older equipment, you know, in terms of transmitting data. And that's some of the problems we've actually had with your current system, getting it to call out
Okay, you're referring to the phone lines at the comm center or VoIP?
here as well.
They should be digital here.
Well, the digital, that's what I'm talking about. The
Okay.
digital lines that can be an issue. Now, there's one thing that we did quote that you could, is the ability to have a cellular backup. Is if the lines were out, the way, I mean, we sell that monitoring service as well. So the way you guys have kind of a stripped down version of a real monitoring center, right? But the way that it could work is you could have a cellular backup here. So if it fails to call out on the phone line, it could switch and automatically places a cellular call. But you don't have the problem is the receiving end, I don't know that they would have the technology to receive that. That's something we'd have to look at. I mean, we would, if we were monitoring it, that could be an automatic thing. But there's a lot of smarts that goes in, the receiving end that knows what to do with that call.
Okay.
Is this something we could add later?
You could, sure. You know, the radio is a few $100s that would go on the transmitting end, the panel end, you know, the courthouse end, if you will. It's the question I would have is on the other end, there might be some additional expense incurred to have the ability to do that.
The system itself allows for future expansion if necessary.
Yeah, the system we're putting here wouldn't be any different than we would put in anywhere else. So you would always have the ability to monitor it yourself or to have it monitored by a third party or, you know, have the same options anybody would have.
Is there a limit to the number of panic buttons that this system will?
There is a physical limit. I don't know what that is. I think it's around 60 something. I'd have to double check that
Okay.
for sure. But you've got 40 some wireless transmitters. The other thing that you could do, if there ever became a need to have more
panic buttons, it would be possible to put in another panel and another receiver, but all of your buttons, and you could split them up. In other words, some buttons would be on this panel, some buttons would be on another panel. So you could, even if it were, the limit were 40, if you just put in another panel, now you could go to 80.
But we'd be looking at another probably 9,000.
Oh, no, all the transmitters would all be the same. So you would be in the sub $1,000 to add an additional panel that would hook to a different phone line that could call the comm center that would support another 60 or 100 buttons. So the transmitter buttons and the label put all that, those would work with any panel.
Okay.
Kerry, I've got a question. These 40 buttons that we have now, what additional buttons are we including that we don't have?
Well, you will have a second judge and secretary. You'll have 2 drug court personnel. I currently do not have a button. Tabitha does not have a button. We need a button in Debbie Thacker's, 2 additional buttons in Debbie Thacker's office.
Okay. That's one on each side. Okay.
Now, one thing that we could do, I know, it's my understanding is there's not always somebody in the sheriff's department here, right? That was a concern.
Well, I think that the majority of time there is, but if there's an emergency that everybody needs to respond to, no. I mean, there's always someone in here during office hours, but of course, after hours.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Probably most of the times that a duress button would be pushed would be during business hours, right?
Except for our magistrates, they have to come in
Sure.
at night.
So, well, one thing you could do, a couple things to ponder a little bit. A duress alarm, by nature, you might want to have people notified, but the reason you're pressing the duress alarm, you might not necessarily want to know that person that somebody has been notified, right? So you don't want them, the scenario is if I'm holding a gun and I hear a siren, I just start shooting because I'm going to get shot anyway. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But what we could do with this panel, you'd have the ability, you could put the keypad that we would put at the sheriff's department would have a sounder on it that would go off, beep, 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 beep. You would have the ability to put a siren or something louder that would go off in the sheriff's department so that, if I were standing right outside the hallway of the door of the sheriff's department, I might not hear the keypad, but I could hear a louder siren. I mean, those are $20 items. That's something you could do if it was deemed that was pertinent. Or that siren could be placed, you could have multiple sirens placed throughout the building. Don't know that you would want to do that necessarily, but that certainly is an option. And that's something you would, the panel would have the ability to do that.
Okay. Now, could a panel be placed at the comm center as well as the computer? Because would that not alleviate that 20-second?
Well, here's the problem is you now that the comm center is up on the hill, the courthouse doesn't have would-be direct connection. We supply you with an internet connectivity that puts the cameras up there and the door access system and some of those things. And that happens pretty quick. I mean, obviously they can view the cameras real time.
I'm kind of putting these together here as we speak because we currently have an RFP out for a new phone system. The new phone system will allow us to transfer calls to the comm center. Does that mean that changes connectivity there?
Well, a couple things. The part of the delay is when you push the button. I mean, let's back up just a second. If this building were at anywhere else in the world, it could be in China, and you were John Doe, our customer, and you had a duress alarm that was monitored, or fire alarm, or burglar alarm, or any of those things, the process of reporting is still the same. when you get an indicating device, first of all, the panel recognizes that, it seizes the phone line, it actually dials the number just as if you were picking up the keypad. It has to wait for the other end to answer. Once it answers, it transmits the data, verifies the data, hangs up and it double checks that communication to make sure that that actually went through. And then it hangs up, and then the computer on the other end has to process it, display it, and then somebody has to see it. So that 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever, that's actually pretty fast for all that, even though it could seem like an eternity if you're waiting for somebody to respond. But even the fire marshal would give you, I think you got 3 minutes if you have a fire for the thing to detect, call out, get a response, and they dispatch. You have to recognize that there's, and I know that delay is a concern, obviously, if you're on the panic end, but you're pretty limited as what you could do. Now, one thing that you could do, there are some other ways of transmission that might cut that down by a few seconds, maybe even half, maybe 10 seconds. But there still would be a certain amount of delay because you don't actually have a hardwired connection between here and there. So that data has to be transmitted in some fashion, right? So what's not possible is, we just don't have any way current technology to put a keypad up there that's off of your system without actually having a physical wire that would run from here to there.
Okay. What would it take to cut this response time in half? The cost?
Well, you could look at the part of what's being done now, obviously with the internet, is the panels. Historically had used phone lines because those are basically available, almost everywhere in the civilized world. So that technology has been around for years and years and years. So it's pretty robust. It works even if the power's out. Generally your phone lines are working. So, I'm thinking, 10 years ago, not today, that with the internet traffic and all that, some of that's changed. But that was a fairly reliable way to report. So if you had a building, if you back up with a few exceptions, if I had a building in the middle of nowhere and I had a phone line to it, that phone line, the power from that phone line came from the telephone office, which had batteries and generators and all that stuff. So even if my building didn't have power, my phone line still worked. In the internet world and with the advent of better technology, that they can use the internet to transmit a lot more data, a lot faster, a lot cheaper. The problem with that is a lot of times the customer's premise has smart equipment that may or may not be battery backed up, so that if the power's down, your phone lines might not necessarily work. Okay? So from an alarm standpoint, you can still do the phone lines thing, or there are panels, we sell a lot of panels that have internet communicators that they can actually communicate over the internet. That typically happens much faster than the dial because you can send an email from here to anywhere in milliseconds. So that transmission time is cut down. The downside being you're relying on the internet, which means there's probably active equipment somewhere that may or may not be. You would have to make sure it had power in a case of an emergency. Does that all make sense? So if you were to assume that you had all of the facilities, the internet at both places was backed up in the case of a power outage, and you had a panel that communicated via Ethernet and a receiver that received via Ethernet, then that time would be much faster. So then you could talk about, probably 5 or 10 seconds.
The keypad that would be in the sheriff's office with an alarm, does it use the phone line
No, the keypad is directly connected to the alarm panel that lives in the courthouse.
So the comm centers are 22nd way,
Right,
the sheriff's office is instant.
that's correct.
And the comm center is going to dispatch the sheriff's office, so.
Well,
But it gives them a heads up.
If they see,
Right,
if they see
right.
on the panel,
Right.
then they can just come right around.
Yeah, I mean, when the comm center was in the backyard, you had a direct connection, so they knew immediately. But now that that's not the case any longer, then you have this delay to transmit the data, and there'll always be some amount of delay. I mean, short of renting a pair of phone wires that went from here to there, which is probably not very practical, there's a delay.
Right. I'm assuming that there will be an increased cost if we went with the Ethernet.
The panel wouldn't be much more expensive. They don't have the ability on the other end to receive that, so they would have to have a receiver with an Ethernet.
Okay.
And I don't know what the cost on the other end would be. I mean, that's not something that we would typically, we can get all that equipment, but it's not something we sell every day, so I'm just not familiar with what that would entail without checking. This end I know would be, minimal.
Well, it sounds to me there's a lot of security in having the keypad in-house.
I think you want to do that regardless. You get an indication at the sheriff's department, there's this likelihood there's an officer there a lot of the times. So, if you look at the times that someone's likely to press it, the chances are better than not that it would ring directly at an officer. Now, obviously, his delay is he hears it, he's at his desk on the phone, he has to get up, go read the keypad, see what it says, think about where that is, and then walk there. Yeah, but he could probably do all that and have that in hand probably by the time that the comm center gets it, and then they've radioed down to send somebody.
Any additional questions?
Now, back to the portable buttons, and that's something that you can add at any time. That's basically just the cost of the button. You're probably looking at sub $100.
Okay, see, I was under the impression that the button that you would take with you would also be the same button you would place back on the desk once you return.
It could be, but the panel's not smart enough to triangulate your position.
Okay.
So you just have to keep in mind, what you could say is, here's a button for the judge. Judge, keep in mind, you can carry that around the courtroom with you in your pocket. You can press it, but if you press it, we would have to program the name in there as, judge's chambers or whatever. If he happens to be standing by the front door, there won't be any way to determine that.
Can we edit the names of the buttons if elections change?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, what I would suggest on that, we can type in anything you want. That's just an open text field. So what I would suggest on that is you probably don't use names so much as locations, right? Because if I'm an officer or maybe a new hire or whatever, if it says, the courtroom, probably don't know where that is. If it says John Smith, I don't know if I know John Smith.
So long as it's not having more than one together. Because currently it'll say judge's chambers, that includes family court and circuit court.
But you might say family court chambers or, whatever. But we can put anything in there that you want. And it's changeable. There's no fee for that, obviously. You'd have to call us to change that.
Right.
But with the panel hooked to the phone line, which it would have to be in order to call the comm center, we would have the ability to remotely access it and change the programming or look for, if you call and say, the other thing that the new panels do, that your old panel did, I'm sure to some extent, is they monitor the battery for themselves, the battery for the buttons, the signal level. There's all kinds of internal checks and balances. If it thinks that there's a problem, it'll phone that home to the comm center.
Okay. We've had a lot of false calls with our current system.
Well, I think that's probably due to the fact that the checks and balances between the buttons and the panel are not very good. And it's, with the new system, what it reports is very distinct on the other end. They'll know whether it's they can get a call that might say button in the judge's chamber, for example, but it'll say low battery, right? So as long as that's coded correctly on the other end, they'll know that, the person just has to read what the thing says, but it'll say panic button, but it'll say, low battery or failed to communicate or something. That's a trouble, not an alarm.
When that happens, will that also go to the keypad or alarms?
Yes, it will go to the keypad. Now, your siren won't go off,
Okay,
right? But the keypad might beep. In other words, you have the sounder that's in the keypad is just a beep kind of thing. So in a case of alarm, it might be just one steady long beep that never goes away until somebody acknowledges. In the case of a trouble, it would say system trouble, beep, beep. It's going to beep every 20 seconds to annoy you, but
okay.
it's obviously a different indication.
Thank you, Mr. Butcher. Appreciate it. This is, of course, one step that we're enhancing our security, and we're one step toward evaluation of security over the overall courthouse campus.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes yet for our next appointment at 10. Well, not appointment. I'll be going to executive session at 10 o'clock to review applications for the scholarship on the Terry W. Wiley.